Hey guys, Charlie here. Okay, we are on to Module 3, Housing. So I've broken this down into a couple parts here. It's the biggest module here, and after this it's just kind of downhill. So first we are going to tackle outdoor, and I'm going to go through 1 through 3 commandments here. I'm going to get to that in a second. So I have 10 commandments. I've basically broken housing down into 10 parts here. We have border and housing, number 1. Number 2, space. Number 3, protection. 4, substrate. 5, elevation change. 6, water dish. 7, hiding spot. 8, plants and shrubs. 9, basking spot. 10, temperature and lighting. So for this part, we're going to go over 1 through 3. Border, spacing, and protection. So for the outdoor section, first you need to make sure that you're even eligible to have your horse field outdoors in the first place. Some people live in areas that you just can't do that. So housing outdoors is recommended because they're in their natural element with the natural sunlight, wind, things like that. Natural sunlight provides calcium, better metabolism. You can have larger areas of housing, and you can grow food as well as live plants. If you live in an area with extreme climate, it would be best to house outdoors either part of the year and then bring your pet indoors, or just completely house them indoors all year. Reasons to provide indoor housing includes excessive rain, wind, or extreme temperatures. So if you live in an area like that, it's best to have it be a controlled area indoors. Horse fields are used to large temperature changes in nature and can handle many different temperatures. In the winter, they can be in any temperature above freezing, 0 Celsius, which is 32 Fahrenheit. The hottest temperature they can handle in the summer is 40.5 Celsius, which is 105 Fahrenheit. If your outdoor climate is within these ranges, then you're able to provide outdoor housing all year for them. The ideal temperature when not in hibernation is 23.9 to 35 Celsius, which is 75 to 95 Fahrenheit. Horse fields are a Mediterranean tortoise, and they don't like excessive moisture. If there's excessive moisture in the air, they can endure respiratory problems, and if there's excessive moisture in the ground and substrate, they can face shell rot at the bottom of their shell. Horse fields are used to many dry and arid conditions, as opposed to tropical tortoises, which can endure humid conditions. So with that being said, you really have to determine if your area outdoors in your backyard is viable for your pet, and if not, no problem, just bring them indoors. So this next section I'm going to be talking about is outdoor housing, commandments 1 through 10. So we're going to start with number 1, which is border and housing. A border height of 40 centimeters, which is about 15 to 16 inches, is good. They can be very talented escape artists. So good materials are concrete block, wood, tennis court fencing, or brick. They're really good at getting out, so you really do have to make it a very solid area with solid materials so they can't get out. They're very good at that. So bricks and block, such as cinder block, cement block, concrete, and red brick work great. Place them several inches below the surface. Make sure that the blocks don't fall down by connecting them with cement. You can also fill cinder blocks with any type that has a gap in between them with dirt or sand, things like that. And with that being said, a couple things you want to watch out for is anything falling over or just being unstable. Or a lot of times, don't put anything in the corners or next to the fence so that they can sort of shimmy their way up and get over that. Like I said, put it a couple inches below because they do dig, and so they could make a tunnel and dig out. So just be sure and make it real solid. Okay, so the last bullet here is wood is one of the easiest and also cheapest ways because you can place it a few inches deep, hold it up with stakes, and you're done. The drawback is that it can rot and it can keep moisture. It can also soak up and hold and retain water, which produces humidity and is not good for the respiratory systems. That's why you must seal and finish the wood so that it does not take water in and rot. Next slide here for border and housing, we're still on number 1. Tennis court fencing is another excellent option. It'll last the life of your tortoise because of the plastic materials basically, and it has a small opening so baby tortoises cannot fit through that. The only drawback is that the border is see-through, which you can see plastic strips that are made specifically for these fences. Horsefields are also known to wedge themselves between two corners and flip over the other side and dig below the border, kind of like what I talked about here, previous slide. So make sure that there's a solid foundation along the border and impossible for them to dig under that completely and dig a tunnel. They can't dig up enough and then prop themselves under the border. Also, a solid color that they can't see out helps them from walking along the perimeters and trying to go through it. So as opposed to seeing the outside and trying to go through that and banging their head against that, it's not good. It's good to prevent any possible escape below the dirt. Options here: make the borders too heavy for them to wedge their shell in between, so kind of like digging a little bit underneath the border and kind of propping it up there. And this includes concrete block or brick will do the trick for that. Light wood sometimes allows them to escape and can also rot and weaken, so unless it's really connected well, if you're just propping pieces of wood up, they can really pry that out. Second bullet here, again, just bury borders several inches below the surface. And lastly, lay a metal wiring about 7.5 centimeters or 3 inches below the surface throughout the entire pen and fasten securely to the border. So this is another option. You can use metal wiring, basically, things like chicken wire and materials like that. Okay, so now we're on to spacing, food and diet. So a quick intro here. This is a crucial component to having your pet be the happiest and healthiest possible. Following proper guidelines is so important because there's so much room for error that can definitely be really impactful. They are herbivores and browsers in the wild. Browsers are animals that eat mainly leafy greens and berries. Horsefields also eat mushrooms, insects, and carrion in the wild. It's impossible for us to replicate exactly what they eat in the wild because it's based on their Mediterranean homeland and its seasons. Our goal, though, is to get as close to that as we possibly can. This takes effort and is not easy, as other pets can be, but having a Horsefield is awesome and it's totally worth it, and it's a lot of fun. So most of the foods we will be feeding him or her are based around green leaves and edible flowers. In addition, they need a diet high in calcium and fiber and low in protein. Having a variety of foods as much as possible is important to be healthy. Don't get in the routine of feeding them the same thing every day. Definitely mix it up. Okay, now food sources. The correct natural diet that your Horsefield tortoise is used to in the wild basically helps it maintain peak health, maximum vitality, and lives to be the happiest and most stress-free and longest life possible. So the best version of himself will all come down to the correct environment, which is housing, essentially, and a diet, and the food that you provide him. Having the correct food types, water, and amounts of these do nothing, though, and can't be processed or metabolized if the temperature and lighting is not right. A Horsefield tortoise can starve to death with all the food in front of him if the temperature is wrong. The temperature needs to be around 23.9 to 35 Celsius, which is 75 to 95 Fahrenheit. So be sure in the housing section that we previously covered to execute correctly the temperature and lighting. A lot of the eating habits have a lot to do with the temperature, and that needs to be correct. Horsefields eat plants known to be poisonous to humans, but consume them just fine, so don't worry. There are plants that are poisonous to Horsefields, including mushrooms and certain other plants, but they're not always the same ones that are poisonous to us humans. One important thing to ask yourself is, where am I actually going to get the food to feed my tortoise? Because it is definitely crucial to have a large variety of food, and it's also likely that you will pull food from several different sources. So with that being said, let's dive into that. So moving on to food sources here, there's 4 different types that I would recommend. The first is grocery stores. So grocery stores and your local supermarkets are going to be one of the most convenient places to go to and buy food from, but you must not rely just on this one source alone. Although it seems like the perfect solution, these food markets actually provide food that can contain pesticide residues and also unhealthy fiber, sugar levels for your Horsefield. You can get quite a few leafy greens and vegetables from grocery stores, but your pet can become unhealthy with only store-bought food. The second option is online. There are only a few food items that you should be buying online. 2 include the Cuttlebone, and the Missouri Tortoise Diet brand. The rest of your online purchases should be based around housing and getting his living conditions right. Things like hiding spots, housing, tortoise stables, things like that. Okay, the third option here are pet stores. Avoid general and generic large pet stores, as they usually are not trained on specific needs of a Horsefield tortoise, and they usually don't typically sell any food products that you should be feeding your tortoise. There are a few good products like the Missouri Tortoise Diet, but there are many ones that they might try to refer you to that wouldn't be ideal. So definitely seek the advice from specialty reptile stores. Most establishments have extensive knowledge on the needs of Horsefields versus the sort of the large generic franchise pet stores. So as far as pet stores go, definitely niche down to the reptile ones. The majority of your food will not be found here though, as they do need fresh leafy greens and vegetables. Any pet store or reptile store is not a food market, but you can supplement with, like I recommended, the Missouri Tortoise Diet and a few others at your local pet reptile store. Okay, the fourth option is grow food yourself. This has been a preview of the Horsefield Russian Tortoise training course. If you'd like to continue this training, click the link in the description below this video. And I'll be sending you more free information on the Horsefield Russian Tortoise care, including buying, housing, food, diet, hibernation, breeding, and health. So go ahead and click the link below, and I will see you there.